just take one more minute to everybody to find their seats. Okay. Well, I'd like to start by welcoming our friends Niran Chowdhury and Manish Chopra, who are both with us for the day, and we're truly delighted and honored to have you here. Let me introduce my wonderful teacher, Thomas Huebl. Thomas is a modern-day mystic who has contributed to the world a vast body of knowledge about mystical principles of healing, relational attunement, collective trauma and its aftermath, and the refined skill set of acting on behalf of the whole. He runs a 2-year trauma healing program called the Timeless Wisdom Training, which I've had the privilege of being an assistant in which he is taking a group of hundreds of people through their own personal and collective trauma healing process. The alumni of that program are 800 in number who meet annually as a core group, a healing sangha that is deepening the repair that each person has, but also together contributing to an experiment in what it looks like for a community to walk together longitudinally on behalf of one another's transformation. He teaches a program online on a regular basis, reaching thousands of people. And just 2 weeks ago, he finished his annual Collective Trauma Summit, which brings 100,000 people together around the globe on behalf of healing collective trauma. He's an author, has written a book called Collective Trauma Healing, another one called Attuned, and in a few weeks' time, his book with Dick Schwartz called, what is it? Releasing Our Burdens. Releasing Our Burdens will be published, and it's almost certain to be a profound healing resource for all of us. For Mobius, he runs supervision groups for our practitioners, constantly helping us to refine the instrument that we can be with one another and for our clients. He does mystical principles of healing courses for us, and most importantly, on an annual basis, he's the anchor lecturer of our Next Practice Institute. I think it's fair to say that those of us that have had the privilege to study with Thomas over the last 10 years have found it profoundly impactful in our own personal journeys and family journeys, and incredibly inspiring as you always move the frontier of what's possible in deep compassion, mercy, forgiveness, and healing. Please help me join me in welcoming Thomas Huebl.
Because all of us wouldn't be here without Amy. So thank you, Amy, for bringing us all together every year. I'm happy to be here. I don't know, it's the 7th time, or I don't know. And it's always lovely to come in here and feel the quality here in the space, the processes, the tracks, and also the quality of the community coming together. So thank you for being here. And I want to take you today on a journey. We have 4 stations. One is our calling. I want to find out more what brings us here together on a deeper level. The next one is our work. As Amy said and Angel said, and I'm sure many times has been said, we are the instrument. I believe excellent client work in whichever way depends on what we embody, how we walk our talk, who we are, how we show up, how we engage, how we relate. All of this is, we are the instrument. So what's our work to do? And what is a little bit of the background of the work that we do in Mobius with many practitioners and with many clients? Then I want to take you into the exploration of the contract. I will not say more, it's a cliffhanger, the contract. And then I want to talk more towards the afternoon about the path. What does it mean that I'm on a path? I'm on a path of development. And I'm on a path of development means when we as practitioners develop, all our clients develop with us. Why? Because nothing in life is separate. Everything is interdependent. If you don't believe me, stop breathing for more than 3 minutes. So we are interdependent, and Angel said it beautifully before. Thank you, Angel, for your lovely presentation. I don't know if he's still here. It's an environment. The art of healing, the art of transformation, is the capacity to create the right environment for it. And I think we are all creating environments for our clients to grow. We create environments for each other to grow as peers, as a community. There is no separate entity that grows just on its own. I think it's a myth of modernity, and I think it also creates a lot of limitations on how we can really develop as humanity. And I want to speak about some of what I think are pitfalls of this modern worldview, and I think some of it has been mentioned already. So we will talk about some of the principles of being on a path. What does that mean at all? And what are the principles of our own journey, the trajectory that is part, I believe our development is part of our client work. It's not I develop and then there are my clients. I develop and then there is my work. No. When I develop, the work develops. And what are the principles that make our work successful and an ongoing upward spiral? Even in the midst of turmoil. And at the beginning, I want to say something that maybe will need some time to be unpacked. This is something that is, I think, complex and simple at the same time. And we often, and I think that's a collective pandemic that many of us bought into, consciously or unconsciously, is the better world is later. The better world is to come. The revelation is to come. That's something I would love to challenge. Because now we can say, oh, look at the world. There's so much turmoil, there's so much pain, there's so much destruction, there's so much whatever, which is true. And is the hope. And because also Angel already opened the door, we will talk not too much that it becomes traumatizing, but a bit about trauma. And imagine you have a person who is getting traumatized right now, or a child. What does trauma say in that moment? Here and now, life is not good for me. When a child gets abused, neglected, when a person gets attacked violently, or whatever happens to us, in that traumatic moment, life says, this moment is not good for me. And that's very important. And it's also very important to understand, not here in my body, where all this pain, all this stress, all this emotional turmoil, all this overwhelm is happening, is not the place to be. So not here, not now, is definitely better. Not here, not now. So time, space, fragments. In the traumatic moment, when we need to dissociate from our pain, time and space fragment. That's the koan of all the mindfulness movement, in my opinion, is that we don't know yet how to work in a trauma-informed, mindful way, on a mainstream level, with the intelligence of not being present. Because many people think when I'm not present, something's wrong with me. I should be more present. This is the issue. This is the symptom. When I tell myself I should be more present, I'm overriding the real process. I'm overriding what's actually happening for me, that I meet my own past, the time-space collapse. What happened to me 30 years ago shows up when I become reactive, when you tell me something and I feel criticized. And I meet the ghost of not here, not now. And I call it, I'm not fully present with my client, I'm not fully present with my husband, with my wife. I'm not fully present with somebody that triggers me or criticizes me publicly. And because I meet the ghost of my own fragmentation. And my mind, because Angel said another beautiful thing, is like, why are we talking at all about embodiment? I mean, we're all born in a body, why do we talk about it? Why is somatic practice, why is embodiment so important? Because many of us and our ancestors and our cultures left their bodies. Not entirely, obviously, but we are not inhabiting the data flow in our body. That's a fact. I've seen thousands of people going through programs. We made photos at the beginning and at the end, and I can show you hundreds of photos. We would say, it's unbelievable. That's the person before and that's the person after. You can see they are much more in their bodies. Just by doing the right work, we come back into life. We deal with the separation between heaven and earth. The separation is us. We are shareholders of separating heaven and earth. We are shareholders of that fragmentation that we try to deal with outside in society. It's not just happening out there. And when people say, well, history repeats, that's true. But the repetition compulsion, according to Sigmund Freud, is the repetition compulsion is not happening outside of us. It's happening through all of us. No matter if I'm on the left or the right, and if I'm here or there, I believe we are all shareholders of the social, cultural, global fragmentation we see today. There is no outside only. And that's why it's even more important as change makers, whatever how we see ourselves, as healers, as counselors, therapists, as coaches, that we, first of all, are the instrument. We are shareholders of the collective shadow dynamic, that environment that we want to create. Why do we want to create a healing environment at all? Why is healing not happening? That's a good question to ask. Why? Life over millions of years knows how to heal itself. When you cut your finger, you see it works. At least if there's not a big complication and you open your wound every day and you put poison into it, the body knows how to heal it. Why does the cultural psyche not heal? Why do our psyches sometimes not heal? Why do our bodies not heal? The inhibition of healing is an important process. It's not a mistake. And through the one symptom of the unconscious is that we don't see, we don't feel, and we try to override to close the gap. Power over is always happening. I should be different is applying a hierarchical power over strategy onto myself. And the culmination of power over is authoritarian leaders. But many of us do this inside ourselves all the time. Oh, I should be different. I should have known this. I should have done this. I should be more developed. I pathologize myself. I internalize criticism. And I override what I can't feel. And so the first step to every healing is owning it. Say yes. And I was once in Kathmandu with a group for a long meditation. I was many times, but with a meditation retreat with a big group in the Himalayan mountains. And we, at the end of the retreat, I had a prayer come to me. And one line of the prayer says, I am grateful for what I see. I'm grateful for what I am aware of. And I'm grateful for what stays hidden. That's already more challenging. Of course, it's lovely. We all think we should see more. It would be great to see everything. I don't know. So I'm grateful for what stays hidden, what I am not aware of. That's more challenging. Because my spiritual ego might say to see more and everything is the thing. That's why I'm doing all this work. I'm investing a lot, but I really want to get there. At the end of the day, it's like a spiritual marathon for many people. At the end of the day, I want to get, even if I'm exhausted, I practiced a lot, I put a lot of time in my life into my practice, but I will get there. And that's also how I project my own death onto my development. It's a finite story for many people, when in fact it is not finite at all. And so I'm grateful for what I see. I'm grateful. That's where humility comes in. I'm grateful for what stays hidden, because this is thy will, and that's why I'm here. Which means I know my place in life, and I'm grateful for what I'm aware of. I'm committed to be aware of more. I'm committed to my path. But I'm humble enough to understand that what I'm not aware of is not a mistake. I get that. And once I get that, and I can bow down to the unconscious, I get its blessing. This is I think it's a fundamental point of every process facilitation. If I don't understand this, I don't understand something significant. The unconscious is a necessity for every child. It's not a mistake. It's the highest intelligence in my family system that I could apply to go through whatever I went through the best. Even if the best means here, very painful. So the defense mechanisms that we all carry inside, that create the unseen world, are our highest intelligence from the past. They're not mistakes. But we often turn it into, I cannot feel my body well. I don't know if that's true. What we know is that it's hard for you, if whoever says that it's hard for you to feel your body well. But if it's a matter of I can't, or if we could reframe that and say, oh, interesting. So let's have a look at the intelligence to pull out of your body. That is intelligence. That's incredibly intelligent for a child that lives a lot of time in fear because the parents are violent, there's alcoholic parents or eruptive parents, or there's neglect. I don't want to feel my loneliness all the time. So to shut down my body awareness is intelligent. As a grown-up, I might criticize myself as a leader, as a CEO, that I have difficulties to make decisions, and I'm postponing all the time decision-making because I don't feel what I want to do. But that's not a mistake. It's a mistake when I don't understand the unconscious. It's a process when I understand the intelligence of life. And that is love. That is love. It's that I look through and I see, wow, how many of us learned to split ourselves in weaknesses and strength is actually the perpetuation of thousands of years of human suffering. And that I want to get rid of my weaknesses versus learn to listen to those. Learn to see their intelligence. That's, I think, the art of deep healing work. And that's a deeply relational process. And I think that's really beautiful. And the excellence of healing is beautiful. Everything that shows up in the process is the process. It's not blocking the process. Even if it looks like stuck, the stagnation is the process. It's not the stagnation prevents the process. And so I want to talk about this over the course of today a bit, also how we relate to ourselves, and why sometimes development is inhibited by the way we approach it. And so that's a little bit the journey for today. And before I will unpack some of this, I will come back to it. I want to just, for a moment, before we do a short centering practice together, to get into the first part of what brings us together, what moves us, what is the movement in our life, what's evolution, what's motivation, what's agency. I want to look at what tells you that we are related right now. I know some of you heard me ask that question before, but there's always many new people coming. What's the indicator of our relationship? How do you know that we are related and that you're not just sitting separately and I'm talking in the front and we are not related? How do you measure the quality of our relationship right now? When you say whatever, I will repeat it so that everybody hears it. How do we know we are relating, really? We can also sit in the room and sit in two different worlds, and it looks like a bunch of people in a room. You can feel me, exactly. We have an aligned intention. You have trust. How do you know that you trust, that we trust each other? Your guard is down, you let me in. When you put your guard up, how does that work? How do you do that? It's instinctive, okay? So guard, let's explore this later, what that means, guard up, guard down. Who is in control of that? So intention, how do you know that you feel me?
I can stay in myself and allow the information to come to me, and I decipher it and feel like I'm learning.
Okay. What else? Yeah?
When I'm touched by something that somebody else says,
When I'm touched, right?
relate, you feel that in the person's experience.
Right. I feel touched. I feel a certain level of resonance. Like there is some kind of mutual space that we create, right? Beautiful. Safe. How do you know that you feel safe?
Relaxed in the body.
Relaxed in the body. More signs of safety.
Breath.
How is the breath when we feel safe?
It's deeper in the belly.
It's deeper in the belly.
Slower.
Yes. Right. That's because these are, and I often start like with simple things that seem like we all know what we are saying, but actually in the detail, it's more complex than that. We say, oh, I feel safe, but how do I know that I feel safe? And when I explore a bit deeper, then I see, oh, when you feel safe, and I listen to how you describe it, and then I look how that resonates with my experience of you. And so the state of your nervous system when you feel safer has an impact on me, which is also a beautiful thing because it means the state of our nervous system is an asset. It's a leadership asset. It's a facilitation asset. It's not that it doesn't matter in which state we are. And as you said before, Angel, that practices, and practice is always practice and integration. I cannot practice the parts of myself that are traumatized. I need to integrate those first. But I can practice the resourced parts of myself to develop a different interior regulation. I can strengthen my regulation. But regulation is a very important function because regulation means that I know how to regulate myself in the relationship now. That means I don't walk away with a carry-on luggage. I don't walk away, oh, why didn't I say that? And why did she or he say that? And then I'm ruminating. And the same is in client sessions. In some client sessions we walk away and it feels like done. In some client sessions we walk away with a bit of a residue. I'm sure you know this. That you walk away and you think about, was that good? Was that not good? Was something missing? What was missing? Why didn't I mention this? I felt it, but I didn't say it. I was a bit afraid if it will land or not. Similar things. So this is a sign of the unconscious of the moment. The residue tells me something couldn't be processed. That's very simple. That's why the work with that residue is so important. If I know that, then I say, well, every time I walk away from a client session like that, it's my calling. It's not that something is wrong. It means I met the edge of my conscious universe. There was something that I didn't get. Something stayed hidden. Which is the invitation for all of us that develop this work into some art form or some excellence, is this is the invitation where I know, wow, I need to make myself a note and come back to this. If I don't have time during a busy day, I want to come back to and feel what stayed in me that wasn't. It's not that it's good or bad, it's not that it's right or wrong. It only is important. I will come back to this and look what that means. So regulation is an important function. And the dysregulated states of our nervous system co-create the healing environment. That's why my work on myself is not just a nice thing that I do when I have time. I believe, as a true practitioner, it's actually imperative to my way of walking to do my inner work, which we all do, otherwise we wouldn't be here in this space. And yesterday we had a small meeting, and somebody in the meeting said, because I went through my own healing crisis, I embodied a new form of healing for my clients. And this is amazing. Like Angel said before, post-traumatic growth. But for every facilitator, it means that my post-traumatic growth means that I become a cultural remedy. I become a remedy for other people. Why? Because I don't talk about transformation, I speak transformation. That's very different. Many people can learn intellectually something about transformation, that's great. But what really heals, if that transformation really happened in our life. If it didn't happen, it's great, it's theory, we can philosophize about many things. But the true transformation is the one that I can walk. It walks with me into an organization, it walks with me into a CEO meeting, it walks with me when I am with my child. Its true transformation is an embodied change that I bring into the space when I show up. And the parts of me that didn't experience that transformation, they can't transmit it. So that's why many people say walk your talk, but what it means is your word and your heart and your body one? Is the flow in the nervous system from the prefrontal cortex down through our spine one data flow? And that's what we call authentic. When somebody speaks from their heart, we all love it. Why? Because we know we can trust it. Because it's safe. When somebody is authentic, they're just who they are. Even if they're in pain, if they don't know, if they are struggling, and it's authentic, the word and what's in the heart is the same data. And why do I speak a lot about collective trauma? Because I believe there are certain symptoms that are so prevalent in our society, so pandemic, that we normalize those. And one is that the word and the heart are two. That we say A, but we actually feel B. And our parents had this to a certain degree, our grandparents most probably, our teachers, in our workplaces. It's pandemic. That what we say and what's the energy, what's the information that is in our hearts and body are a bit or significantly split. And trauma does exactly, trauma creates two. Trauma is the essence of two. And another, and then we will go a bit into some practice and exploration. Another one, an example that I often bring, because it brings it really to the point, is that in a collectively traumatized world, which means that trauma pre-existed everybody's life here in the room, on the planet. Trauma is not only a biographical event that happened to some of us or to many people that live in this world right now. Trauma happened to our parents, our grandparents. It is a system. Trauma is a systemic design factor that unconsciously, it's like you hire a designer, but somebody pays from your bank account another designer that rewrites a bit what your designer designs in your house. And then you come to your house and you say, listen, this doesn't feel fully right. What did you do? And the designer, no, I did everything, but we don't know that in the house of humanity there's an invisible designer that creates this house in a way that we didn't ask for. Because overtly, many people would say, yeah, I'm a good person, I want to do good, but actually what we are doing is not that. And that's not a mistake, that's a symptom. It's not that we could build a better society. I think that's a myth. We first need to own that we can't, then maybe we can build a better society. But if we disown that the mess that we are creating is ours, then we keep recreating it. Like every client, you would say, yeah, if you're doing it that way, telling me that you could do it differently doesn't make any sense. So let's have a look, what's the process, and then we can look how to grow. And so in a collectively traumatized world, we did one thing that fits also into the thought patterns of modernity, is we said, emotions are personal properties. It's your fear, or it's your grief, or it's your anger. Well, is that true? I don't know. So when I'm with my daughter, and she says, and some of you heard me say this before, and she said, listen, Daddy, I'm scared. And I say, oh, don't be scared. Everything is okay. What did I do? I devalued her emotion, and I gave her a rational answer when she has an emotional request. And some of our people on our team come to us and they're disturbed and they say, don't be worried. But I am worried. So telling me that I shouldn't be worried doesn't help me. So the other version is when my daughter comes and says, Daddy, I'm scared. And I look at her and I say, yeah, I feel you're scared. Come to me. Come. And in a moment I say, come, and I open my heart and my co-regulation capacity to her, my nervous system and her nervous system become a shared space. What she feels is she feels heard. She feels, I say I'm afraid, and somebody says, I feel that you're afraid. That's resonance. And what happens in that resonance is that her nervous system starts to decrease her stress and fear because she feels safe, because I witness as a parent, what parenting means, I witness my child's evolution or development. And with that I confirm it. And when I confirm it, my child knows more that my child exists. Witnessing, I see your development, brings that development into existence. Which means she will not walk around in that part asking, who am I? What am I supposed to do in this world? What is my vocation? Because it has been witnessed and confirmed. And we are doing this with our clients very often. We see them in their pain, we see their struggling, we see their developmental edges, and that's why witnessing opens the space for something new. It's awareness that we provide. And so when we say in that moment, her fear is not just her fear, it becomes a shared space. That's exactly the healing environment that Angel spoke about, is that emotions are not just personal properties. In a compassionate world, emotions are shared spaces, are the unifying resonance field when somebody is deeply grieving and I say, wow, I can feel that this is really painful. Then, and this is really sad. So we come together, we feel it, and it becomes a unified space. So that's also, I think, an important ingredient. Emotions are not just personal properties. They are the relating or the relational space in the moment. Emotional intelligence is that. It's not just that I know a lot about emotions, it's about the resonance, the shared space. Somebody's ashamed, I feel it, I'm mindful of it. I don't shame the person more, but I I'm mindful of what's happening. I see somebody in a board meeting or team meeting is contracting. I find a way to deal with this, but not through, because I'm aware of that. Otherwise, the person needs to contract more. It creates more resistance, and it spins off. That's just an example. Okay, so let's summarize this a bit. And then we will unpack some of it through these 4 journey points I said before. And let's sit for a moment together, and then I will just do a regulation practice. 8 minutes a day can change your life. So we need to stay together for 2 months now, 8 weeks NPI, and we will all walk out and be different. Changed our neuroplasticity. So let's what we collected before. Let's say I take a screenshot of how I feel right now. I look inside. And I check in physically, emotionally, mentally. How are you doing? And in the inner awareness work, we always look at, okay, I get a screenshot of what's my inner state. And then by saying yes to that inner state, no matter if you're very stressed, very relaxed, touched, as somebody said before, or you feel inner distance or whatever, or absence or excitement, your body is maybe open, maybe a bit closed, whatever it is. And then just connect to your breath, to your exhalations. And say, okay, with every exhalation, I sink a bit deeper into my body. I feel my body. And I notice the areas that feel warm, safe, connected, grounded, pleasant. Maybe there are just a few areas like that. Maybe my whole body feels like that. It doesn't matter. Regulation starts with an anchor in the physical body. Areas where I feel, wow, I feel at home in my body. Home means I can rest, I can be. Being is recuperation, recharging my battery. I have perspective, I have space. And the next exhalation, and if you want, one way to regulate stress is to slow down exhalations. So I can slow down a bit the way I exhale. Let the breath touch the safe and warm areas. and through what we call the resourced body areas, integrated life, millions of years of life as a data flow in my perceptions. Within that I can feel through my body the ground, and I can say, oh, what's my current sense of the ground? Is the ground close? It feels a bit distant. And don't try to override, it should be close. Close is good. No. Whatever you find, embrace it. And if it's easy to feel the ground as close, when our nervous system is relaxed, our body is open, the ground feels closer. And you can also feel a bit into the ground, the soil, and the land we're on. If it feels distant, embrace it. Notice there might be stress, and to welcome that compassionately. So the closeness or the distance to or from the ground are great indicators that tell me or one way to see my stress level. And then to notice also as you're sensing your body, sensing the ground, there is something aware of that process. Something's aware of data. That's what I feel is data about my body, the ground. It's perception. And there is, I feel my body. I'm aware that I feel my body. And notice awareness. Not just I think about awareness, I notice awareness. Capacity to witness inner space. A form of depth and stillness. As you are in this reflective inner space, let's connect to what calls you to be on your own path. What's the calling you follow to heal yourself? To develop, to turn your work into an art form. to enjoy the beauty of refining it, bringing it to a new level of excellence. But what's the deeper motivation that maybe some time ago made you set your sails to sail into a direction that is only partly clear? But we don't know really where we are going. We know that we are going. We have ideas about it. But our calling is the motivation to transform, develop, heal, practice, and connect to that force, to that intelligence, to that motivation. Because there's something you trust, otherwise you wouldn't move. So you trust that. You feel it's important enough to invest your life energy into development. Let's feel that motivation. And as you feel that, maybe get a sense of when did that start in your life? What initiated you and brought you on your path of development? Maybe decades ago, maybe recently, doesn't matter. When did it start that you listened to that inner intelligence? And then, if you can see it a little bit from the bird perspective, or not too far away, like as a river that took you to different stations, like a river that flows through different landscapes. Your calling took you onto a journey. What are some of the milestones of that journey? You met people, mentors, peers, communities, practices, books, podcasts, clients that helped you to develop. And you look, what are some of the major milestones your calling called you towards? And as you see that river of your life unfold, I'm sure that everyone here in the room had some essential moments, either in a meeting with someone, in your meditation, in your client work, that you remember as like essential for your own development. The last question is what is that calling you to right now in this phase of your life? What is currently the developmental call in your life? And with that, let's take a deeper breath, or a couple of deeper breaths. Feel your body and slowly come back. And it would be lovely because what we are touching is movement. Calling, I often say, calling is the echo of your arrival. The calling is the echo of the arrival. In the calling, even if we cannot say exactly what it is, we know something. Otherwise we wouldn't follow it. Even if I cannot fully even explain why I'm doing certain things, it just feels like right. And when somebody else, sometimes I know, but sometimes I don't even know why. I just feel called to do something. And I don't know exactly what's going to be the outcome. That's why when somebody asks us, okay, where are you going, all of you? If I'm really honest, I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to heal myself. What does that mean? I'm on a spiritual journey, but where are you going? Yeah, the divine, God, Buddha, enlightenment. Yeah, what does that mean, really? These are all words and concepts and thoughts that, great, somebody said that, but how that is, how that will be, I don't know. If we knew, it wouldn't be new. So if I know, I'm not going into a new territory because I know it already. So development always has this edge of, wow, I'm actually going into a new territory. And I don't know that version of myself and the version of the world. We are just going. And however rational we are on the one hand, that is not really rational. And it's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be put in a box. It's supposed to stay open. That's the nature of the call. When I feel called, I don't always know why. And that's the essence of it. But I know it's true because I invest time, I travel, I go to people, I go to events, I listen to stuff, I read books, I practice. People can also tell you, why are you sitting every day an hour? It's a waste of time. You could do better things in this time. No, but somehow not. Because if it feels right, then it's true. And so in the developmental work, we're looking, when we have three forces, movement, habits, neuroplasticity, and trauma. And we will look at this, but now we're looking at movement, what moves us. And maybe you can just turn to two other people. Let's have three people turn together and then turn to each other. And then we will take a short break after this and just share a little bit about your motivation. Where did it start? How does it feel? What's calling you now? And how do you notice that you feel called to something? To describe that, because when you tell me about your calling, you transmit it to me. So I can listen, I can learn from your calling something about calling and my client's calling also. And so let's turn to each other for a few minutes, for each 3-4 minutes per person, just to share a bit how you experience that. And maybe what were important milestones on the way? What's moving you? let's slowly come back. We will collect a few voices. Just if anybody wants to share, we can give a microphone to you. Like how anything you want to say about your calling. And let's see what happens, because here is a very attentive space. So we are very present with each other. We will take a short break in a moment. But let's just hear a few voices about the calling. And also maybe what you learn or hear when you listen to somebody else's calling. Because when you share about your calling, I connect to your river. There's a water flow in everybody. Because one thing the big wisdom traditions agree on, that everything's moving. Maybe we don't agree on whose God it is, which is strange, but it's true. But it's because it's only one, so that doesn't make sense. But but okay, we leave this small incongruency that keeps us busy for thousands of years. When I listen to somebody's calling and what you feel passionate about, what drives your development, I connect to your essence and I connect to one of your strongest resources. So whenever, and then I can say, okay, how am I taking care of the fire of my calling? Like, how do I nourish my calling? And how do I support clients to nourish their calling? Because sometimes we feel overwhelmed by life. We feel so many things are happening. It feels like sometimes I don't even listen to it because I have no time. And then it feels again strong. But what do we do to nourish that fire that drives us, that river? So maybe we can hear a bit, and simply exchanging from that place is nourishing it. So maybe anything about motivation, your calling, what calls you, what started it, how does it feel, anything you want to share, yeah? We'll give you a microphone, maybe. Yeah, wait, I will bring you a microphone. I'll take it. Thank you. It's gonna come in a second. Yes.
There we go. Thank you. It was a real blessing to hear that, blessing that which is hidden. And when we were doing the practice of following the river, I've always talked about the practice coming from my practice of soulscaping that I'm sharing with people is this fun, creative, beautiful thing that happened, I don't know, maybe from 15 onwards. But I followed the river back into the hidden places. I could just feel the sensation in my core. And I realized it was because my father would show me how to paint when they were going through a divorce. And it brought me so much, it was a joy in the midst of that time. And I realized, wow, the honoring of that which is hidden as part of the motivation was just, it was honoring my body. And I'd never really seen that before, felt that before.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, that's beautiful. Yeah, also how you can see how something traumatic and your motivation like dance together. And it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
And just to say as well, I thought, I better do the actual practice. So I followed it up and through and out, and the rivers then kind of constellated into this. I realized it's not only my river, like that the crystallization of this is to then bring the river in such a way that all our rivers can be ignited into flame. So
exactly.
And that intelligence was in this body, not some clever imaginal thing, just it was so this body's like
the body is amazing.
It is amazing.
It's the living record. If you look at it, our body is the living record of millions of years of development. Imagine you develop a computer for millions of years, And here it is, and life handed it over to all the generations, the few generations that are alive right now, and say, handle it with care, develop that further. And we are holding, literally in our bodies, I believe they are not just like the age our passport holds, but it's, so that's beautiful, amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Thomas, thank you. Always a pleasure and a blessing. As I was reflecting on this notion of calling, tomorrow Joanne and I will be talking about purpose. And I felt like we often have a little bit of a closed framing of that purpose, and want to bring like some cleanness and some versus really leaving a much more openness, much more messiness to this idea of purpose, and like how can we continue to live into that and make it I heard dynamic renewal and rebirth. So these are all, I feel like, ways of keeping that purpose and calling much more open. So just wanted to share that. When you think about purpose, how does that relate to calling?
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And first of all, I wholeheartedly agree. We kind of castrated purpose we took out the messy part and say, oh, it's the shiny career. Like, what will I do in life? What will I do in life? It's like me. And I think there is a lot to what you said, like that it needs to become more open. It needs to include that our issues, our healing is part of our purpose. We are here to restore something through our lives. Our trauma, our hurt, our pain, individually and collectively, are not just there and disturbing us, they're there for us because that's our purpose too. As much as how I show up, how many people I can inspire, how my work flourishes in the world. And I often say to this, like Bruce Springsteen on Broadway said it pretty well. He said, I thank you for providing me with purpose. That's a blow to the hyper-individualized purpose discussion. Like, my purpose, what I have to do. No, my purpose is the interdependence of my calling with a need in society. It's not just mine. It's an interdependent process. And so so I'm very happy that you're exploring this tomorrow. It's a great exploration, so thank you. Yeah. Oh yeah. Mark?
Thank you, my dear. Just to evoke some of the emotional quality of the calling conversation in the trio, there was the grief of recognizing that we don't have the power to give our children a safe environment where they can thrive, and the bitter grief of that. There was the recognition of multi-generational trauma and what it would mean in this generation to end that, and recognizing the pain of that and the uncertainty and the unknowing of how to have that happen. And to me, in the conversation, the witnessing of those pains was so beautiful, because they seemed completely wrapped up with the commitment to create a space for healing and growth beyond ourselves.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I don't know if we will stop the trauma through our life, but at least we can do something to soften our footprint. If we can just relieve 2 generations out of 7, 8 or more to suffer less, it's gonna be a huge win for humanity. Because we often see trauma in our life, but actually it's a whole process through space and time. So what we don't integrate, we pass on to our children. Same as our parents and their parents pass the pearl of trauma on to us. So they say, again, it's too much for us, we cannot handle it. And now it's in our hand. And I think what you said is very beautiful. If I can just do whatever I can do, and I'm really committed to that, that I think is great. You know, in the wisdom traditions, you call saints the one that leaves without a trace. And you see, every one of us has been born into a circumstance. Some of those were much more resourced and less traumatic. Some of them were much more traumatic. And the legacy we carry is the backpack that pushes our feet into the sand. So we leave a trace. And if we can just take care, if I walk the questions that trouble me in my life authentically, as much as I can, because I cannot push myself to develop, but I can be committed to development, then my footprints will get lighter over the course of my life. And then the more I do my work, the less I ask, how long do I need to do this? Like, how long do I need to develop? But what does that mean? It means it's so hard for me to be in this world. This question, how long do I need to do work, is a symptom of the inability to be in a world with my own and the collective pain together and really be here. Because otherwise, in a great moment, you don't ask, to have a great dinner, and so, how long is our dinner, really? Or how often do you do it? It's also a bit strange when you ask, how long is it going to take? Oh my God, 1 hour more? We need to be here. That doesn't go well. But we are saying this to life very often. How long? How long? I will do a bit of work, but then it needs to finish. Instead of, I'm committed to grow till the end of time. Whenever it's needed, and maybe for phases in my life it won't be needed, and if then it will be needed intensively again, I'm here. I'm committed to this life. I'm not committed to when I will get out of it. I'm committed to live. And that's beautiful, yeah. So thank you. One, yeah? Mm-hmm. You can take this.
For me, it had more of a playful, mystical quality than a practical one. And two things really showed up. One was coherence, like to be in more coherent environments and to be coherent in my body. A lot of my clients are very fast, and how to either change that environment or change my system so I don't need to speed up to meet with them and to invite them into a deeper space. But the other big piece was not knowing. Like for me, it feels like my calling is not to decide from my head, but moment to moment to feel into what actually is arising. And that's really hard for me.
Yeah, and I think it's at times hard for all of us in some moments and maybe easier in some other moments. But you said, I want to just underline this and then maybe we can take a short break. Like, you said something very powerful because many of us operate in a system that's very fast. And it's not going to get better. Let's face it. Like, data speed is increasing, like the speed of life is increasing. A regulated nervous system can handle that. It means also, I think it's very important to see that our nervous systems throughout our lifetime needed to adapt to a tremendous increase of data and data complexity, which means the life that needs to flow through us got much faster and bigger. Like, we are living in a global village where there is no out there anymore. You know, before we threw the waste out, now it ends up in our brain. And we say, well, we threw it away, or where is away? Away doesn't exist anymore in a global village. Like what I throw out, I throw into somebody's brain. The microplastic ends up here. So great. So we solved the questions of out there. There is no out there anymore. And the other one is, like every practitioner, like my nervous system, when somebody is very stressed, and stress transfers itself as a quality of stress through the relationship, then you said, on the one hand, either I speed up and I become more, but why would I speed up? Because it touches stress in me. Conscious stress or unconscious stress? And the great thing for us to know is that, and I have seen again, thousands of people reveal in themselves when we say we are stressed, that's only the part of the stress we can see or feel. There's much more of it that is in our unconscious that doesn't even show up in my daily life. It shows only up as symptoms and as small explosions or waves. And so I think that modulation that you speak about, that the nervous system has the power to down-regulate stress together, non-verbally, but maybe modulated through our language. This is a powerful facilitation tool. You spoke, I think, to something that is very important, that my regulation immediately has an effect in the space. And even if people are stressed, regulation is an invitation into a deeper regulation for somebody who experiences a lot of speed and stress. And I think that function is way more important to create a discernment between the speed of life and the stress of life. These are two different things. Intelligence is fast. Trauma is stressed. These are two, and they're often mixed. It looks like, oh, when somebody is fast, they're always stressed. No, there are some people that are so genius in certain things, in math or whatever, in physics, that when you listen to them, it's a oh, great, I got it. And so that is speed of intelligence. That is a sign of excellence. But that's different from the stress that we are dealing with. That's a different part. And I think it's very important to see that when you look at the essence of trauma, you see the traumatic stress in a person's nervous system and body is an extractive state of being. And what I mean by that is, traumatic stress is excessive stress. It's not anymore regulated stress of being busy and not busy and working 16 hours and having a weekend or whatever, regulation. There is a stress that I cannot regulate. Even if I try, I'm not in charge of this. And it gets triggered by certain moments, but when it gets triggered, it looks like it happens. I become reactive, my heart closes, my throat is tight, my solar plexus is tense, my belly is tense. Did I decide to shut down my solar plexus? No. So who did? When my chest is tight and I feel distant, did I choose to be distant? No. Who chose? My past. Yeah, it's true. Unconscious process, the choice is in the past. Conscious process is freedom. Unconscious process is no choice. Because you see it, when somebody gets triggered, poof. The choice is outside the range of the person's awareness. It's very clear. It looks like, oh, suddenly I feel, no, it's not suddenly. But where the process happens and where my consciousness is not, I am not aware of that. And so this down-regulating piece that you spoke about, and the trauma stress being a non-sustainable state. When organizations create a system, and somebody has 5% trauma stress, somebody has 10%, and we share this, then we create an extractive economy just by the software that is in us. And I think that's important to see, like we're living in systems where we mix speed of life, of intelligence, and the excessive stress that is actually part of the unwell-being of an organization. And when we discern them and we find a remedy for the excessive stress, then we can create fast and sustainable working environments. They can be fast, but they are not sustainable when we have this extractive economy. And then you look at the planet and you say, yeah, but it's over-extracting the resources of the planet, but that's what every trauma does in the body. Trauma in the body means I'm taking too much of my resources, and that's why after 20, 30, 40 years, I might get sick. Mentally, physically, whatever. Because the body can't do it, because it can't regenerate the over-extraction. And so I think you spoke to something very important that I will maybe come back to afterwards. And that also means in my integrated self, I can be in uncertainty. If it's not crazy, but if it's regular uncertainty, every good leader in the integrated self can be there. In my mature self, uncertainty is part of development. But in my regressive self, when I get scared and I cannot control the outcome, then that's not my mature self that cannot handle uncertainty. It's the regressive part of me that has issues with uncertainty. That's also important. So that's great. So thank you for that. Yeah. So let's have a short break. Let's come back maybe at 11:35. 13 minutes. 11:35. 13 minutes. So we continue. We'll continue before we have the next break, which is lunch. I want to so this is our calling, and this is, I think, a great place to nourish. Because, as I said, in our calling, we know something. Like reconnecting to what calls me is reconnecting to my essence. Like when I reconnect to what I'm deeply passionate about, I'm reconnecting to a place that is not separate from life. That's important. So my calling is a representative of my essence, and my essence is never separate. It never will be. I can feel separate in parts of myself, but I am not separate in my essence. And however, which name we give to this essence, it doesn't really matter. It's our core intelligence that we always, that's a great resource. So when we also look at transformational processes, we want to look, and this is what I want to come to next. I told you we want to go from the calling to the work that our calling calls you to do, or calls me to do. And trauma in itself doesn't say much. It's not, when we talk about trauma in relationship to relationship. We talk about trauma in relationship to a resource. And so we all are the product of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years of life, and that life integrated some of that hardship. Many of our ancestors got hurt, healed themselves, got hurt, healed themselves. So there is an integrated intelligence that is, these are all the skills and the capacities that we have here in this room and on this planet. And only that in relationship to the trauma says something. So it's not just what happened to a person, it's what happened to the person in a specific context with a specific support. And many people that know the ACEs studies, like adverse childhood experiences, is in relationship to positive childhood experiences. And Angel talked before about positive psychology, so it's not about what's wrong with us or what's hurt with us, only what is hurt in a specific ecosystem of resources. That is the inner state we are dealing with. And there's a lot of research that says, and I will show you, just to have a, I don't know how to, hopefully that activates. So when we, for example, say, what happened to you and what is strong about you. So we know that high adversity and low relational health in a family system is a very high risk factor for health issues, for all kinds of stuff. So, but it's the trauma in relationship to the relational health in the system. Some people experienced very difficult things, but they also had a strong support system that puts us into intermediate. And if we have less trauma and high relationship, so it's a low risk factor. And when we go one back here, it says that longitudinal studies say that if 87% of those who say that the relational support was very low have a much higher risk for severe or serious illnesses than people who say they had a high relational support. So there's a direct correlation between the relational support and the trauma load, and only in conjunction we can say something. So it's not about, oh, I hear that this happened to you, but it happened to you in which context? And your body, if I'm perceptive, your body tells me that. when we train as facilitators to listen to whatever is the people's history, that's why the intellectual data flow alone is not enough. Because I want to feel in the person that talks to me, what is the trauma load really? Even if the story, the life biography sounds very severe, it's not enough. Because I might project what I think about that life story onto you, which is irrelevant as a facilitator. What I think about your process is irrelevant. What's relevant is how I perceive your wholeness, what you tell me intellectually, what your emotions tell me, what your body tells me, what your capacity to be in relation to me when you tell me that. All of that data is what is relevant for me. And how I look at that holistic data, that's important. But if I'm just hypnotized by the intellectual story that somebody tells me, I might miss a lot of other data streams that are crucial for me as a facilitator to notice. But that's important. Why is that important? Because in mainstream society, there's a lot of talk about freedom. Like we are free people, and we're all free. And we defend that freedom, which on the one hand is very good, but the other question is, are we really that free as we would like ourselves to see? And especially, is my attention free? The freedom of attention. And that's something that we all have to explore, because if I am the instrument that listens to you when you share something with me, I have certain frameworks how to interpret it. That interpretation is already a limitation to who you are. And so when I sit with somebody and I have an intellectual storyline, if I'm getting sucked into that intellectual storyline, I start tuning down my experience, my data streaming that I feel when you talk. These parts of your body get tight, these parts of your body become absent, there is stress, there's no stress, there's too much heat, there's too little heat. Your body tells me a lot about the physical narrative, but if I am, oh really, and this is, so I miss a lot of data that is very important for the process that we go through, for the coaching or healing process. And the same is emotional dimension, and the same is relationship. What happens when a client talks to me and how their relationship with me unfolds second to second tells me a lot about their history. And what I mean by that is when I sit with somebody, the difference between my daughter having the support, I'm afraid, I feel you're afraid, come, let's look at it together. Emotional resonance, rational leadership. Emotional resonance, rational leadership. If I practice that, she grows up in a more coherent environment. Later on, when she is grown up and she will say, oh, I'm scared, support is natural. When she will talk to me about her fears, her relational, the social engagement system, that is, I wanted to show you too. When in the green zone, this is from the polyvagal theory, I think many of you might have heard about it. Like Stephen Porges developed a whole body of work about the co-regulative qualities in mammals, and we are mammals, so, and the co-regulative quality in how we relate to each other, which when people say my heart is open, that's when a part of our central nervous system is active. And why I'm showing this is not to go too deep into it. It shows the different stages of stress escalation. So when my daughter comes to me after experiencing over and over again, I'm afraid, there's co-regulation, there's support, my co-regulative quality will become her regulation. So self-regulation, co-regulation, self-regulation in the next generation. That's important. Like self-regulation, because if I as a parent am often very stressed, I cannot really co-regulate with her. I will try to do the right things, but my nervous system can't do it because I'm stressed myself. She comes and says, oh, I'm scared and I'm with 5 clients that I need to take care of. And then I say, oh yeah, don't be scared, it's okay. I know it never happens, but it's so that in that moment my nervous system is not able to do it. And that's when I say, oh, I could have done it better. No. That's disowning my process. That prolongs our mutual suffering. If I say, I couldn't do it better, I'm sorry. At least it's honest. I own it. Then I can do some development, and then I can do it better with her. But if I tell myself I could have done it better, that's simply not true. That's my defense saying, that's not true. And I think we ourselves and our clients live often in that delusion, and we let ourselves be in that delusion. And that prolongs the idea that I could have done it better. If I could, I would. And if I didn't do, I didn't do. That's a fact. So it's not what I envision myself to be, it's what I really am in life that counts. If you want to see your state of development, look at your life. That's your development. Everything else is fantasy. For all of us, I need to look at my life and say, yeah, I see. That's the reflection of who I am today. If I want to grow, great. But I need to own that if I have issues in my relationship or with my kids or at work or with my clients, this is where I'm standing. And for me as a practitioner, this is very important because I role model that. I don't tell my clients like I'm a perfect, and then I perpetuate this idea that anybody is supposed to be perfect. That's simply not true, and that's also like a defense in itself, in me. And so when we say, when the regulation, co-regulation, self-regulation in the next generation, that our state of our nervous systems, also with our clients, it's also true. We are often, for our clients, the resonance surface that allows our clients to develop the parts that didn't have a chance to develop. That vitamin has never been given. It's not that they could do it better. No, there was no chance. In that family, in that environment, in that culture, that was who we could become. And so when my nervous system state matters, then my own inner work, how often I reside in this wave field between red and green. So when green is my regulated self, I'm grounded, I feel open, as somebody said, I feel safe, I can resonate with you, I have a wider perspective, I can problem solve well. These are all functions of a grounded moment. And I can reflect. Everybody that came here brought space-time here. We are meeting here because we want to reflect. You didn't come here because you know everything. We all came here to learn something. And we all came here to reflect on our lives more. So we brought space-time with us. 5 days, 6 days of space-time. That's a function of the green part of the nervous system. When I'm in this green zone, I have inner space. William Ury calls this the capacity to go to the balcony. So the capacity to be reflective. When I'm sitting with clients, that's what my clients want from me. They want me to be in that space. And my clients also want that I have enough space in my life to contemplate my clients, to take a walk, to say, oh, I'm reflecting. I let my client sessions run through me. That is an amazing capacity. That is part of my coaching or my therapy sessions, is that sometimes I take a walk and I just let it run. I reflect on my clients, their lives, the sessions. That is an asset that I provide. That is not just a waste of time. And I'm sure we all have ways how to do that. And that's a bit different from I'm walking with a residue and I cannot sleep at night because I'm thinking about the client and if he or she or they like the session. That's my stuff. There's nothing to do with my client. I'm contemplating myself, not the client. So that's important to know. Like I spend a lot of time with myself when I do that, that's okay. But it's important that I'm aware of that. I'm not dealing with my clients, I'm dealing with my stress maybe to lose my client. But that's about me, not about my client. That's my stuff. It's really about my client when I'm in this red zone, when I don't think about them because I'm triggered partly, when I say, oh, my inner state is a relationship that I offer to my clients when I see them, and sometimes when I feel it's important and I don't see them, but I contemplate them. I open my space. And we talk about opening the space and contract a bit later. But we can also see, when we talk about stress, that when the line goes up into the red zone, worry, anxiety, frustration, anger, fight or flight, it's not that when I'm stressed that it's necessarily good or bad. When I'm stressed because I have many things to do, whatever. I have deadlines, I have all kinds of things to do. That's perfect. The question is only, how much time does it take to take the stress down? That's the point. Stress is not just a thing by itself. It's part of a regulation system. If I can regulate my stress quite quickly and I don't have sleepless nights, then it's great. I work 16 hours. I have many things. I go from one meeting to the next. When I go home, I come home, I can be with my family, with my child. Perfect. It's great that I was stressed. It makes me creative. It is part of my life. It's part of complexity. But in trauma, I cannot turn the light off. That's why I cannot sleep at night, because it should be dark in the room, but the light's on. So my inner stress, I cannot turn the light off. And then I can sleep, of course. And then I ruminate. That means a lack of regulation in the nervous system. That's what we want to look at, not if you are stressed or not. But we want to look at if, when the stress level goes up, we need to know that polarization is happening. When we carry trauma, we are naturally polarized. So the polarization in our society is a reflection of millions or billions of people's interior state. And we even develop technologies that make a lot of money of triggering that polarization constantly. Social media algorithms have been designed to earn money with, not with the regulated attention, with the freedom of attention, with the stress of fight or flight, and when that gets triggered, it has a much faster response time than me from the present state. So for many people, the addiction to technology is based on these polarized inner states. That's different. If I choose to look at something, then if I read a headline and my fear gets a little bit triggered and I get a bit stressed and I look at it, who chose my fear or me? Whatever that means. So that's important. And when I see the more escalated the stress is, it is in small letters written, I can, and above the blue line is I can't. Deflation, dissociation, indifference, disengagement. And that's important because many people say, oh, when I'm triggered, I become reactive. I become either fight or flight polarized. But some people that are very triggered, they are distant in a meeting. They internally checked out. They are not participating, right? They are physically there, but energetically they are back. That is a person that is triggered. Somebody that disengages and becomes distant, that's a trigger. That's absencing, distancing, indifference. And so the one is louder, that we talk more about, but the other one is equally important and even shows us parts in people, because that's not the entire person in a grown-up today, but those freeze states might be the reason why we sometimes speak. I wanted to say this, but I didn't. I had a conversation, but I didn't say what I wanted to say. And afterwards, I'm thinking about, why didn't I say this? I felt it, but I held it back. And so I'm not speaking. And so that freeze state is not all the time there, but when it's triggered, it has an impact on my performance, obviously. And so the sensing of I feel you and I feel your attention. In my green zone, what you said beautifully before, when I am regulated, I can invite my clients into regulation, which means it doesn't mean, oh, you're stressed, I'm a little bit distant and I'm waiting until you're a bit de-stressing. No, like this it doesn't work, because I need to feel your stress in order to co-regulate it with you. So if I become distant, which many people do when somebody else is stressed, it doesn't work. And then people say, no, it's not working. No, it's I need to feel you, and when your nervous system feels felt, it feels safer. Somebody said this before in the beginning, it feels safe, means I'm relaxed in my body. So the basic building block of relating is I feel you, and I feel how you feel me. And if I stay present to that, people's relational experience tells me almost their whole life story. If I stay present to track your relational moves as you speak to me and you tell me something about your life, when integration means the relational space stays open. How do we know that we integrated some trauma in our life? Because I can talk about it without charge. It's still there, still part of my biography. But when I tell you about it, and it's different than, oh yeah, I also have been beaten as a child. Yesterday I went to buy apples. No. Like being beaten as a child and buying apples is not the same message. So if somebody tells me, oh yeah, I have also, so where is the energy of that process? Where is your experience? It's shut down, which is understandable. But for me as a facilitator, it's important to see, well, that's a non-integrated aspect of the person speaking. Versus, yeah, my father was violent, he beat me, and I'm here. So that I had a traumatic experience, I integrated it, and when I share about it, I can still feel you. Because I couldn't feel my father when he was beating me. So when trauma happens, the relational system has to shut down, at least to a certain degree. When the person talks about themselves, it's active. If there is a shutdown, the person cannot stay in relationship. And that's important for me to track all the time. So when I talk to people, I always track, okay, how are we in relation? And nobody can fake it, because if there's trauma, you will have to disconnect from the relationship, even for seconds. And so these are, when my attention is free, which means I have a green moment, or a green phase, then my body tracks your body, my emotions track your emotions, my mind follows your mind, My relationship follows your relationship. But I'm in a space of I feel you, and I feel if you feel me, and I feel if you don't. Doesn't really matter. It's just about me being aware of the process. And then we can see a lot of the defense mechanisms active in the conversation. And that means I'm open. But if somebody tells me something I'm a bit triggered, then some of that data flow is not flowing. And then I start guessing about my client. I start interpreting what they say. I start assuming. I ask myself, okay, what's the next step? When I lead a group and I feel my mind says, what's the next step? I stop. What does that mean? Why am I thinking about what's next? It means that I lost the wave. You know, if you're surfing, you lose the wave, and then you think about the wave. Where is the next wave? But when you're on the wave, you don't think about the next wave because you're riding the wave. So in a present moment, my mind doesn't produce that thought. I'm not thinking about the next moment when I'm really in this moment, because the next moment will appear out of this moment. That's presence. But when I think about with a client, okay, what should I do now? It's already a sign that I lost something. Otherwise, I wouldn't have that thought. It would be clear to me. Even if it's stuck and we are stuck, it would be clear to me. It's not about that it's always flowing, but it would be clear what's, okay, when there's a stagnation, let's bring that into the game. And that's why I'm saying that the freedom of attention is another word for presence. And where my past is active, my attention is not free. There's a wrapping paper around my attention. And my attention is more likely to go to places that resonate with my past. It's not open to perceive my client fully. So my story, and that's why when we talk about compassion or empathy, when some people say, well, your energy affected me, or I need to protect myself from your energy, I don't know. Is that really true? Or is it more true that I sit with a client, the client says or does something, I suddenly feel a bit of a pressure in my body. I cannot discern if that pressure is happening in the body of my client or me, which is already a sign that I can't discern it. And then I walk away with the pressure and I say, oh, my client's state affected me. My client was very sad. I walk away and I feel a bit heavy. Did my client really affect me? Or did my client's process resonate with my own past? As a practitioner, this discernment, because there are many people that walk around and say, I need to protect myself from the energy, from all kinds of energies. Really? No, I need to do my work when that happens. So when I have a client session and I walk away, that's totally fine, and it's supposed to happen because we all carry certain unintegrated parts. But it's not that my client affected me. It's my past is affected. That's very different. I can own my past. I cannot protect myself from the world. But healthy boundaries mean that more integration is a natural discernment in the mature self of the process that's happening. That's very different than to say, I need to protect myself from you. I think that's an important, or I need to protect myself from what you feel, because of that I'm overwhelmed. Maybe I need that practice for a phase in my life, because my trauma is strong in certain parts and I need to take care of this. This is different. For some people, we recommend that that's their practice for some time to find a safer space in the world. But it's not that that's true. it's not true that if I feel affected, it's my stuff. And if it's my stuff, I can take care of it. I cannot be remote controlled by the world. And that's very unhealthy for me to stay in this belief. That's true. And so I want to first summarize this to see the higher is our stress, the more polarized we get, and fight, flight, and freeze states exist maybe in us sometimes and exist in many of our clients sometimes. It's just a matter that they get triggered, but it doesn't mean that my whole client is always frozen or always in fight or flight modes. It's parts of us usually, except that trauma is so strong that it collapses the whole building. And that the state of my nervous system and my capacity to regulate myself is a key element, a key asset in the process work. Every transformational work this is the ecosystem that I roll out. And not to forget, like that the defense mechanisms, when my mechanism was to become a bit distant in my family, because this was the way how, as a child, I protected myself. I became distant a bit, emotionally. As a child, that helps us to stabilize ourselves in an environment that is difficult at times. So it's an ecosystemic necessity. It's the most intelligent thing I could do in this situation. That's important. So we are always dealing with intelligence. There's no part of us that is not intelligent. Sometimes it's very fractured and the outcome is very harmful, that's true, but it's still part of the intelligence of the person, even if it's very fragmented. And today, if in a team meeting somebody says something and I become distant, my defense is ecosystemically relevant. It's a design factor of my team meetings or my board meetings. So it's ecosystemically necessary, and if not integrated, and that's what many leaders experience, that their unintegrated parts become their derailers, their difficulties. That's why they come to coaches, because it's a design factor in their company today. It is part of what designs the ecosystem today. And so that correlation, that the past copy-pastes itself into the present moment, is important. And healing is the liberation of it. And to come back to something practical before we go to the break, I'm curious, before we did the calling, and now with listening to some of like the inner process work and the nervous system and trauma, I'm curious, what is your, and maybe you make some notes first and then we exchange a bit with somebody else, where do you see your own growth edge at the moment? What is that for you now? If you were to say, what are you working on right now in yourself? What do you feel your calling pushes you to do what? What are you facing in your life, maybe through your inner awareness or through challenges? What's calling you to, what's your current next step? And maybe you can reflect a bit, what's right now the growth edge, but at the same time the expansion of my work with clients, because we are all sitting here as some sort of facilitators, coaches, therapists. So, and this might be through clients, it might be through your own intimate relationship, it might be through some other life circumstances, challenges, through something that you become aware more and more in yourself right now that needs attention. Maybe even the reason why you came here is connected to somehow to that. What's calling, like, what does the flow of your calling point you to right now? If you look, okay, where am I in my life? And I'm sure we all did many things before we came into this room, so most probably there are hundreds of years of therapy in this room. Right. So it's like we are most likely not beginners on the journey, so we did some reflection work, some therapy, some whatever we did, journeys, all kinds of journeys. But what's relevant now? Like healthy development is like a beautiful unfolding. It's like, imagine you take the New York Times or any newspaper, you fold it, you can't read the text because it's too folded. Healing is unfolding. Unfolding the text of our life. So every step leads to the next step, and that step leads to the next step. So it's an unfolding of the text of our life. What's the step for you right now? And as you maybe make yourself some notes of what's needed, so what is the topic, you can also look at do you have everything you need for it? Sometimes there's stuff that we can do on our own. Sometimes it looks like we need help, but actually we need to make a step to reach out. Some people think, oh, if I need help, I can do it alone, which is, of course, a trauma symptom, not the truth. So reaching out is often the strength, not the weakness. So do you have the circumstances, the environment that you need to take care of? So to be responsible, which means able to respond to the need of your healing. And if not, what is it, what you need? If there is anything. That sounds hopeful. There will be lunch. Okay. So as we finish to write down some notes, let's go together in pairs and maybe we can share with each other a little bit. And as you share with each other about where you see yourself right now and what's needed and what's the process, let's practice what I mentioned before. The basic building block of relating is that our brain is able, and our whole nervous system is able to compute external and internal sensory input. What does that mean? It means that what I feel in my so-called outside environment and what I feel in my inner environment is modulated in a fluid way. So in my integrated, mature self, I have the capacity to modulate external data input and internal data input. I can modulate this fluidly. That gives me an experience that my inner world is a landscape of knowing. My external experience is a data input about my clients, for example, and they can be modulated well. Where my trauma resides, that modulation is distorted or disturbed. I cannot fluidly combine what I feel outside with what I feel inside. There's some distortion or disorganization in the data flow. And that has impacts on how we sit with our clients. It will be flowing, first of all, suddenly it becomes a bit stuck. And that is a great moment, a learning moment. Obviously, that's not right or wrong, but it's an interesting moment. And many of our clients struggle with the same thing. That's why many of our clients come, because they cannot compute that bridge is broken. And so when we listen to each other, it's like, I feel you, and I feel your attention when you share with me. And I listen to you as if my body had eyes all over, or ears all over. I listen with my whole body, and I pay attention to what's happening between us in the relationship as you share. And then as I share, you pay attention to it. And that's how we listen, no matter what we will see, feel, find out. It's more about holding that space, that resonant space. And I think we're all in a certain way trained to do this. I feel you, I feel your attention. And then we see what happens. And everybody can share a certain amount of time. Let's do 8 minutes each, and then we'll take a break. So, let's go into pairs and Okay. So let's slowly finish. Let's slowly finish the conversation. And before we take a break, let's just reflect a bit on this conversation. What did you learn? And learning has multiple channels. What did you learn just by listening to yourself share whatever you shared? So when we speak, we often clarify for ourselves what's needed, where we are, even things that are not clear at the beginning as we speak. It's like our inner learning channel gets activated through speaking. It's like you bring fresh water in just through speaking. And I'm sure many of you have this experience multiple times. While you speak or while you hold a group, like run a group or in a client session, that suddenly you say things that you're surprised by. You think, wow, where did that come from? And I see that resonates. So that this is amazing. This is live streaming. That's not watching a movie that you downloaded before. That's watching the movie while it's streaming. That's actually a great state. And what we want to do through our inner practice is to make those moments more often. Because some greater intelligence, if I'm surprised, it doesn't come from my memory that I have. It doesn't come just from my learning. It comes from a different place that includes all my learning, but it's bigger than that. And I said, wow, that's amazing. So that's a part of a revelatory state. And the reason why I ask you, what did you learn, is sometimes speaking about what's really important for me and having somebody as an anchor that listens presently pulls in more clarity. And that's one part why people go to therapy. It's not all of it, but it's one part is that I have a witness. I am the energy, you're the witness, you're the space. Together, it's conscious process. Maybe it's not fully clear to me, but you lend me, in a way, your presence and your clarity to clarify something for myself. That's a great combination. That's magnetism and electricity, energy. Together, light and magnetism. And so this is fantastic. And then I learn when I listen to you, and I really listen to you, and I don't think that my most enlightened moment is later. You know, this is definitely not the most important moment of my life. I'm just listening to somebody in a group that I went to somewhere in Cape Cod. Yeah, but what does that mean? Because many moments I might listen like this is not the most important moment of my life. Actually, it prevents me from my idea of how I attain anything in my life. You are just like on the way. So when will I be done with you? Because I need to get there fast. So talking to you is nice. Okay, I have to do, but I actually want to be enlightened. Or I anyway want to be done with my work, or I want to get somewhere, which is an issue when we talk about love. Because I'm not fully with you. I'm a bit pushed by where I need to be. And like this, I reduce my impact. Also with my client session, I reduce the impact because this is not the most important moment. This is not the moment in which revelation happens. So there's one component that is revelatory, is what we bring in when we have those moments that are surprising, because they're surprising because they're fresh. They are open, they are innovative, they are creative. I say something new that I didn't plan to say, and I say it. Where did that come from? And it's surprising, and it's fresh. It's like fresh water. And in the mystical traditions, there's a saying, there is nothing new under the sun. That's a very powerful, we'll talk about this maybe in the afternoon. It's another cliffhanger, the contract and the sun. But this is a very important, like fresh information is present. It's the virgin birth. It hasn't been premeditated. It's fresh, and it often hits the point. And this is powerful. This is part of a revelatory life, because the revelation doesn't happen later. Revelation is a way of moving. That's why I want to talk about our path in the afternoon, because it's not about the revelation is going to happen in the future. The revelation depends on the state of consciousness, how I walk, how I love, how I'm committed to life, how I'm in life, how I'm with you in this moment. And that I learn from you the most important thing for this moment. And so what did you learn when you now listen to your partner in the conversation? Is there any small detail that was interesting, that was a bit fresh, new, gave a little bit of a new perspective? You learned something about their life, which is also beautiful, because when we say a person is a gate, is a window into a whole life. We actually never talk to a person. We always talk to a window into the life that that person lives in. It's so, it's like a window into an amazing landscape. It appears as a person, but with the person comes so much data, so much life, struggle, beauty, excellence, all of it. And so when we listen, what did you learn from this way of streaming? Is this way of streaming? Is that way of streaming? What did you learn about the leading edge of yourself? Crystallized it. What did you learn about the leading edge of somebody else, and about the principle? We always learn about specificity and principles. Principles are universal. Specificity is embodied. So, yeah?
It was, if I speak loud, can Thank you. I was speaking with Elizabeth, and it was interesting that when the conversation is with words, but the intelligence doesn't always come with words. Like there was a moment that I was saying things, and she noticed that my eyebrows were different, and she's like, what happened there? And that was an intelligence. And in another instance, when I was listening to her, she stopped, rebalanced, and then said something. And all of a sudden, what she said before and after wasn't that important. What made her stop and rebalance was the intelligence. So, and it's also a thought, is how do we engage all sources of intelligence in a conversation? Like there's all kinds of verbal language, body language, and all that stuff. But there must be other sources of intelligence in a conversation when we are fully present.
Yeah, you said it by yourself. You said, what our clients come for is a social mirror. You, or you for each other, you are part of a social mirroring. What does that mean? We say in the trauma work, we say coherence is the resource that onboards the fragmentation. So when I struggle with something, and when the CEO struggles with something, usually it's not that it's the content they are struggling with, it's the process they are struggling with. Because any content can be learned, we can find ways to change. But it's the fact that I don't access that fluidity to deal with it. That's often the issue. So when a client comes to you, your integration state is the social mirror. Like in a guitar, your client is the string and you are the resonance body. And so the way you resonate with the client is the complexity of many intelligences together create a resonance space. So when I talk to you, your nervous system is for me like the magnet to see what I cannot see in myself. I can borrow your eyes when you listen to me, and what you become aware in me is what I can see. That's an amazing principle. And we say sometimes, oh, wanting somebody to help me is like a weakness, is often seen because I don't get it alone. I'm not supposed to get some things alone. We are supposed to get some things together. That's the intelligence. The intelligence is in the interdependence, and the issue is in my separation, that I try often too long by myself, is delaying the process. And so when the coherence of multiple intelligences in you allows you to see these small moments that you just described, these micro moments are the gateways to a lot of change. And the more refined is the listener or a facilitator or a coach in the listening to notice this kind of incongruences, that just sometimes I flicker of a movement, how we look at each other, how we relate to each other, what happens in the body, stress patterns showing up, the voice changing, whatever it is. And you being in a state that you can see that and even slow down in that moment brings like a small, it looks like small, but when you pull on that string, it reveals a whole big fish, from underneath the carpet. Oh. And it looked like just a flicker in the eyes at the beginning. And this is an amazing intelligence. And there's no effort connected to this. Once it's effort, it's not coming from the green zone. I'm efforting to help my client. But in the integrated state of multiple intelligences, it's not even a personal intelligence. It's bigger than we are. We are being infused by something, and that helps us to. That's an effortless state. And this is beautiful because you spoke about these micro movements that you noticed, but these micro movements are important signposts to what we in ourselves or our clients cannot see. And I think if we have a social environment that can mirror those back, and I see my own incongruency in your feedback, and if I can take it, it helps me to grow. That accelerates evolution. That's beautiful. Yeah. I don't know, there's so much more to say. I know we have not much time. One more and then we need to go for lunch.
Thank you. I think we had a moment which was macro and micro at the same time, and we don't know each other, but at a certain point she said, the truth can be spoken here. And then went on to say something else, but then when she said the truth can be spoken here, it was so strong in my body that I had to come back to it. And it led into all kinds of things, but I wondered, because when she said it also felt so powerful for me, that in this room, the truth could be spoken.
That's beautiful. And you're saying something else that is very important. I mean, there's so many important things, but you're saying something really beautiful. It's when we feel safe, our bodies and our nervous systems and our psyches want to heal. One of the biggest inhibitions to not healing is a fundamental fear in our existence. When we don't feel open to say the truth, when we don't feel open to say on teams, when we are on teams and we are holding back because it doesn't feel safe. So this whole term of psychological safety, which is very fashionable, but what is psychological safety? It's not something we have, it's something we create together. Everybody's movements in an organization, in a team, in a space like here, we are creating together that it's safe to say the truth. It's not even a personal process. If somebody says it in a group, the person says something about themselves, obviously, but also about the ecosystemic quality that allows truth to emerge, that allows vulnerability to come into the room, that allows us to say things about ourselves to each other that we often hold back or wouldn't say. That is a conducive ecosystemic quality of healing. And everybody in the room is creating that. And everybody in the room has the power to disrupt it. That we will all shut down more, be more careful, not talk. But safety, like how it feels to really come deeper into ourselves. And when we feel safe enough, the body naturally wants to detox the past. That is that's happening by itself. That's why in a good client facilitation, induction of process is not needed. I don't need to push you through an exercise to feel something. If I do that, I'm overriding your defense. Why would I do that? So when I sit with a client, I'm not interested if the client should feel something or not, or emotional depth is good for the client. No. Why? If somebody doesn't feel, not feeling is better for the person in the moment than feeling. That's true. So being with that process until it is safe enough to feel, I don't need to do any exercise to make something visible. It will become visible just through the safety that we generate with each other together. The relational safety will allow something deeper to come up. And then it's also ripe. And when it's ripe, it can move. And it will become lasting transformation. When it's not ripe, sometimes things come up, but they are not ripe. The system doesn't fully allow it to go through. And so this moment of safety, and when the system is ready to allow something to emerge, this is a very powerful quality of facilitators to generate around themselves, that feels that way. And then transformation happens almost by itself. But that's the magic, that's great. So thank you. The promise, hopefully, is still true. So we continue at 2:30. Have a good lunch. 2:30 we'll come back.